What if I told you you could get S35VN blade steel for under $50? That's what I have here with the LA Police Gear TBFK. S35VN is considered a premium powdered USA-made blade steel and typically found on knives that cost more than twice as much. I'm going to call this version 2 because it's got a few revisions, which I'll go over, released a few years ago. So let's take a look here and see if the rest of the knife holds up. Thanks to LA Police Gear for reaching out and seeing if I was interested in taking a look at some of their gear. They have generously provided a 10% discount code for this knife that I'll add in the description if you end up wanting to pick it up. It'll help you save a little bit and help support the channel as well. I do have social media pages, guys. I'll have links to those in the description along with that discount code, so make sure you check those out. Packaging here is super simple. It's just a black fold-out tray box similar to what other knife brands use. The knife does come wrapped in plastic, as you see there. On the back, you do have a sticker showing all the necessary branding, the model name, the finish. The knife is available with a satin blade as well, handle color, and the model number, and importantly, this is revision B. Unopened, this length I measured here was 4.5 inches. Opened, the length is 8 inches. Cutting edge is at 3.4 inches. It is a flipper blade. Blade stock is 0.13 inches, and overall thickness of the knife here is 0.58, give or take a little bit because these handle scales are tapered and contoured a bit. Weight here is kind of hefty at 5 ounces, and here are a few comparisons of other knives. I'll do it closed first. I've got the Spyderco Delica there on top and a Benchmade bug out here on the bottom. And here they all three are open. You can see the LA Police Gear knife here is quite a bit larger in all dimensions, blade and handle. Handles are roughly the same with the bug out, but the LA Police Gear is quite a bit thicker, as you can see here. So let's talk about the good here, and that's mainly going to be the materials, because that's what caught my eye and is really the big value here. As I was mentioned in the intro, this knife is using S35VN for that blade steel here, and it is a decent blade shape. Through the years, a few YouTubers have tested the steel here, and it does appear to be genuine S35VN. On my knife, it came shaving sharp from the factory and has maintained that edge fairly well through a few weeks of use. I do think the heat treat might be a little bit soft in my knife here just because of how it performed on cardboard. I broke down a few boxes, sliced off a few box tabs, which I don't do a lot of, admittedly, but it's a good test for the knife here. And while it did fine with the slicing, it did dull the edge fairly quickly, or quicker than I would have thought, although a few passes with my strop made it nice and shaving sharp again. The blade shape here is that modified drop point. It is not full flat ground up to about 3/4 of the way. You can see the extra facets here at the very top and the plunge line here. So it's decent. It does have a nice sharpening choil there, which is nice. The knife does come in 2 versions, a satin blade and this black wash blade. The black wash is my favorite, and that's what I got. The handles are G10, and they've got some texture to them, not super smooth, but not super aggressive either. They are 3D contoured, so they feel nice in the hand, but that does result in a knife that's a little bit thicker, takes up a little bit more room in the pocket. Overall, the materials to value ratio here is outstanding. Couple things I want to talk about. Improvements here. On version 2 of the knife, they did get rid of the lanyard tube that was in the tail of the knife. They switched the clip from being a tip down carry to a tip up, and I think that's a great decision that results in a knife that the pocket clip is quite a bit up here, quite a bit deeper carry, which I really like. It's a long pocket clip, so not much of the knife sticks out, which is what I prefer. And retention here is good. I have no complaints with that itself. In the pocket, the thickness does become apparent, as well as the weight, and that flipper tab works well, which I'll talk about here in a minute, but it does get caught pecking in your pocket a little bit. The pocket clip is fixed here in this tip up right hand side carry configuration only. Sorry, lefties. In my medium sized hands here, as in my right hand, it fits pretty well. I don't have any major complaints. The jimping does line up great with exactly where I want to put my thumb. The line lock jimping does catch my finger a little bit, not a whole lot. That's probably my main hot spot. And then this clip catches my hot spot here just a little bit, not real bad. So it's certainly usable. Is it the most ergonomic knife? No. Is it better than a lot of knives out there? Yes. So let's talk about the bad. And I'd label the action as okay, but I had to put it someplace, and this is what came to mind. And keep in mind the price point here. The knife is running on bearings, which is hard to find at this price point, but they're not the most smoothest bearings. It does flip just fine, as you can see there. This has been broken in. It did take some time. It was a bit stiff out of the box. I have not messed with the pivot at all. It's a little bit gritty, and I think it would improve if I took it apart and cleaned it and then relubricated it. I'm sure it would improve, but I like to test knives exactly as they come out of the box because that's a more fair example in my opinion. But as you can see there, it flips just fine. It flips fairly fast. During the break-in period, the bearings were, you could feel them. I think they felt a little bit rough or notchy, but that's all kind of smoothed out and it's pretty good. The flipper tab is pretty large. It does stick out and peck at pock a little bit. You've got a little bit of jimping there to give you a little bit of extra purchase on it. And it, like I said, it works fine. You can flick it with multiple fingers, easily. It's easy, it's just fine. You do have thumb studs here, which I'll talk about here in a minute. They're not my favorite. The knife does have a fairly strong detent, so it's definitely not going to shake loose or anything, but you do have to get a good amount of force on it to get that flip started. I do think when I take it apart and clean it, I will take the opportunity to drill out these liners and save a little bit of weight. That's something they could definitely do, but would add to the cost. One other thing that I want to mention was on my example lockups a little bit early. I'd say I've only got about a 30-40% lockup here. It's not bad, but certainly could be just a little bit more for my taste. And I'm sure some of you guys last got centering. It is just fine on my example, an actual good thing. So the ugly, let's talk about the thumb studs here. They're just kind of big in my opinion. They're kind of unnecessary. This knife flips well, so I wouldn't even include them at all. I think that'd make it a little bit slimmer, a little bit nicer in the pocket. I may try and unscrew these. A lot of knives, they just unscrew and you can get them off that way. And I think that'd be an improvement here. I do think this is something that has changed on version 2 here. They were even bigger on version 1. I just don't think you need them at all here, so I'd remove them. And the second thing I'm not a big fan of here is the branding. The LA Police Gear logo here is kind of big. It's silver, so at least on the Blackwash model, it stands out quite a bit. On the other side, you do have that S35VN labeled there. That's just fine, not a big issue, but it is kind of nice when it's down hidden on the spine lower. The other part is the name of the knife. TBFK is the acronym for the best effing knife, and I think that's a stretch. Is it a good knife? Yes. Is it the best knife? No. Version 1 of this knife had issues, which they've made some changes and I think have made positive improvements to. And I just think that name doesn't roll off the tongue. Let's call it something that people can remember. Am I going to remember this is called the TBFK? Have I called it much during this review that? No, and that's because it's hard to understand. The other thing it needs to change is LA Police Gear's website. They need to update the photos to reflect the changes that they've made on this knife. They still have version 1 photos up on the website, and it really doesn't do what they're currently selling justice. If I had purchased that knife and not realized these changes, while I think they're changes for the better, I'd be disappointed that they didn't actually show what they're changing. Hopefully they get that updated soon. I have mixed feelings on the LA Police Gear TBFK V2 knife. Admittedly, I've become a little bit more of a knife snob in recent times, but I still see merit and value here. The overall value here is quite good. I can't think of another knife that offers S35VN blade steel and G10 handles in this size for under $50. Even if the heat treat here might be a little soft, that's still a fantastic value. That said, the knife has a few issues and its action's only okay. It's fairly heavy too. I wouldn't be surprised if the profit margins here are less than what your typical $50 knife has, and I suppose they have room for that given that they're selling it directly and not through dealers like most knife companies do. Like I said, I think the thumb studs are completely unnecessary and the branding is too big and the name's not for me, but those aren't deal killers. The value here is quite good. The overall knife is pretty decent. Other than being a bit large and heavy, there really isn't anything that would prevent me from carrying this knife daily. So if you're looking to try out a more premium steel or need a good knife under $50, I can recommend this. But don't expect to compare it fit and finish wise to knives over that $75 to $100 plus range, but with lesser blade steels. So let me know in the comments, guys, what you think of this LA Police Gear TBFK knife. If you've tried it in the past, know that they've got a new version out there, so you may want to try it again. As always, thanks for watching, and I've got an exciting flashlight review next week, so make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you next time.